Welcome to the weekend. My name is Brian, and this is the One Up Club video game podcast, available at oneup.club. That's one-up.club, and also on the Trending Topics Network at trendingtopicsnetwork.com. Please be sure to check out the One Up Club's shop over at oneup.club. Get some cool gear with new designs actually presently in the works at great designs like the Super ABS-inspired Super Shirt that are already available. It does support the show, and we will definitely appreciate that. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be covering a lot of Star Wars Battlefront 2 today. And by we, I of course mean that Ryan Hamner of GameBlock.com is joining me. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Not a lot. We were just talking just a little bit, very briefly, pre-show. How much news is just breaking over Battlefront and how it keeps changing and how amorphous it is. It's just really weird, so I'm looking kind of forward to this. I'm sure that things will change, actually, while we record it at this point.
Yeah, we're coming up on the holiday seasons here with Thanksgiving next week, and this EA Battlefront 2 story is the gift that keeps on giving. Every time you think the story is kind of simmered down a little bit, it branches off into something totally different.
Yeah, and I started to cover it the other day on the actual mini show that I had done. And back then, the complaint was that they had made the loot boxes and actually attaining some of the beloved iconic characters from the Star Wars franchise just so damned expensive, and immediately received backlash for it. At that point, they actually reduced the cost of the in-game credit cost of all these things by 75%, while also adjusting the rewards that you get for performing tasks by that same amount. Which is
they kept that part quiet, though, didn't they? That wasn't in the press release, that last part.
No, it was funny how they didn't do that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they did that.
But leading into that, when they made that announcement, it kind of had a little bit of a cascade effect because everybody kind of paused on their criticism for a moment. I know that the way I actually figured it out is I went to check out the review on the GameStop app for Game Informer. I just went to see what the reviews were looking like. And they had said that they actually took the review and actually completely threw it out the window to rethink it. I can't remember the author's name, and I don't have it called up right now, but they said that the problem was that a lot of their review was based on the longevity and the amount of, as you call it, grinding that you have to do to unlock each of these characters and just how much went into it, and that was a huge factor that went into the reviews. And by them making that initial announcement that they were reducing costs by 75%, they literally took the journalistic side of that and just brought it to a halt as well. And then they end up not, like you said, they don't put that in the press release that there was a 75% reduction in cost. So it was almost like an unnecessary halt to breaking news in the cycle to bring another element into it, which was just as confusing.
And you bring up a good point there, Brian, because now that we live in this age where we're patching games on day one, gigantic patches like 20 gigs, 100 gigs, whatever, it really does make the reviewer's job something totally different. I mean, it's nearly impossible at times. Like, you write a review, you get the review copy a couple of days ahead of time, you grind through the game, write up your review, and then they patch it and it's something totally different. I mean, a lot of gamers sit home and count on these reviews to determine whether they're going to buy the game or not. I was one of those with Battlefront 2.
Yeah, and the thing is, what we're running into is we're running into a situation just like with Battlefront 1, where the game was just simply beautiful. because today actually is day one for Battlefront 2 being released today worldwide. But if you pre-ordered it, as my son did, we've had it here at the house since day -3. And it's a beautiful game. Like, everything about it, gameplay-wise, you really can't find much to fault about it. It's a great-looking game once again. So many more worlds, super interesting maps. Just some of the mechanics have changed a little bit. The space battle, let me tell you about the space battles, Ryan. The space battles in this game are freaking incredible.
And that was my favorite part of the first Battlefront. I absolutely loved the space battles. That was the only thing I was good at.
Yeah, I mean, and then just the bobbing and the weaving inside the Star Destroyers, and just, it's literally, they could make a game that was nothing but that, and I would be all in.
And they're actually in space this time. Last time, the first game was all atmospheric. You were on a planet.
Yeah, it was through, like, the valleys of whatever, Tatooine or wherever the hell it was.
Yeah, that Beggar's Canyon.
Yeah, and now it's like, in all honesty, like, if they just made a game that was nothing but the space mechanics that they have in this game, I would totally be into it. So the game's worth it on that point alone. And the entire issue with this game has literally been, for me, and for a lot of people, this pay-to-win structure that they seem to want to institute into it. Because, literally, if you want to turn a gamer off of a game, just be dicks to the gamers. And EA has been very efficient at that.
Yeah.
Also, looking into it, and we're noticing you had actually... Well, I'll just start with Jimmy sending me the update late last night. One Up Club contributor, Jimmy, he was actually going to start writing for the site here shortly, after the holidays, I believe. He sent me EA's official release last night, late, from Oscar Gabrielson, the general manager at DICE. And it says, "Thank you to everyone in our community for being the passionate fans that you are." Yeah, that's one way to start your letter. Our goal has been to create the best possible game for all of you, devoted Star Wars fans and game players alike. We've also had an ongoing commitment to constantly listen, tune, and evolve the experience as it grows. Translated, we got our asses ripped doing an Ask Me Anything on Reddit the other day. You've seen this with both the major adjustments and polish that we've made over the past several weeks. But as we approach the worldwide launch, it's clear that many of you feel that there are still challenges in the design. Not with the design. This is where they kind of go off base. This is total PR move. It's not with the design of the game.
Yeah.
We've heard about the concerns about potentially giving players unfair advantages, and we've heard that this is overshadowing an otherwise great game that they understand. This was never our intention. Sorry we didn't get this right. You didn't just not get it right. You literally freaking destroy the entire concept of the game and the taste in people's mouths.
And this was not our intention thing personally insults me, and I know that this is like a pre-typed up, they went into Microsoft Word and found the apology PR template, changed the words to fit the right stuff, added Battlefront 2 in there. I know what this press release is. That particular line insults me because it insults my intelligence and the intelligence of all the gamers that shelled out $60, $80 if you bought the deluxe edition of this game.
Yeah, which my son did. And as you and I have been talking throughout the week, and I did mention it on Twitter, when you actually look at it, the people who are adults and have a better concept of what that money actually means, they're not nearly as affected by this as kids who are spending their allowances, who are spending their birthday money, who are spending their, that money that they get. That's my 12-year-old son who pre-ordered the game literally months ago because he loves Star Wars. And when I told him the news about what was going on, his literal reaction was, well, that's okay. That's who EA is taking the money from. Because
Yeah.
you and I, any rational adult human being, has the ability, because we're adults, because we understand the concepts of money, and realize that dropping $80 on a video game is taking $80 out of our food budget. We understand that. The kids don't. And you can try to explain it to them, but in the end, they're still just kids. And that's who's dropping the money and keeping the money. And really the only people who weren't really pissed off about this move by EA. But as you sent me this morning, as I was literally just waking up, apparently that letter, that release that was let out by EA, was a direct result of EA getting torn a new asshole by the head of Disney.
Yeah.
Now, the press release basically says, and this is from Nash. I'm not sure who it actually is because I don't have it open.
Yeah.
And I didn't look at it. I was looking at the content of the letter. But he said, earlier today, Electronic Arts Chief Executive Officer Andrew Wilson had a phone call with the Walt Disney Company Chief Executive Bob Iger about Star Wars Battlefront 2, according to sources familiar with the situation. A few hours after that call, and players are finding that the option to purchase the premium crystals currency is no longer working. EA has now confirmed that it is taking this feature down to address fan concerns just as the game is about to launch worldwide tomorrow, which is today. All of this comes after multiple days of outrage from fans who are upset that EA and developer DICE have implemented an online multiplayer system that gives as an advantage to people who pay money, which is exactly what it did.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I don't know how much you paid attention to the Reddit thing, but it does not surprise me at all that it took an intervention from another major company and a business partner for EA to actually make the change. Because if you read the transcripts from the Reddit Ask Me Anything, if you look at every statement that led up into yesterday, you saw nothing but kind of an arrogance and a flippant attitude towards all of this from anybody who is related to EA in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and you can understand why that's happening. And by no means am I defending Electronic Arts or DICE in this case, but they know that people have been drooling for years. It's been 2 years since Battlefront 1 came out, and we've gotten now that the Visceral game got canceled, we've had no fresh Star Wars material to play video games on. They know that they've got us over a barrel of acid. So yeah, why wouldn't they be arrogant? They know that they've got the hot IP. They've got the movie coming out in a couple of weeks, so there's buzz already for Star Wars happening. You could make a case, too, that the Visceral cancellation, which we found out last week, further hyped up this game. Because now everybody in the back of their heads, if that game was still coming out, you could take a look at these Battlefront 2 reviews and say, I'm going to skip this because of the bad reviews, because that Visceral game is coming out in 2019 or 2020 or whatever. I can wait a couple of years. That's not happening now. This is the Star Wars game that we're getting. This is the Star Wars franchise we're getting for the foreseeable future. And yeah, of course they're going to be arrogant.
Yeah. And when they announced the closing of Visceral and the cancellation, well, not the cancellation, but the massive delay that will end up with that IP title, one of my first questions was, what does Disney think about this?
Yeah.
Because literally you've got Walt Disney has a very keen interest in what happens with their properties. And this is a major black eye, just the Visceral thing there. And now leading into Star Wars Battlefront 2, with the way the structure was being made, everything that EA did affected Disney's major property. I mean, outside of Marvel, those are your 1-2. You've got Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar. And if you mess with those things as a business partner with Disney, Disney's a big enough company that they're going to be able to sit down and tell EA, what the hell are you doing? And EA has no choice but to listen to them.
Yeah.
Gamers, they can get away with it because, for the most part, it's kind of like what I said the other day. EA is the Stifler of the video game world because they've got all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're not good friends to the gamers. And I think what they don't realize is just how damaging in the long term that is. I mean, it's working for EA right now because they've got exclusive rights to Star Wars and football and basically soccer. I mean, you could argue that there are other soccer games, but when you have FIFA behind you, that's a pretty big force. They've got all these great properties. They've got all these great development teams and studios behind them, and they just keep doing this, and they keep damaging that relationship. They're shutting down great studios like Visceral. They just bought this week Respawn, the makers of Titanfall. Not a fan of that move, but it is what it is. So they've got all these people under their umbrella and a very large contingent of gamers that follow each of those games, and they alienate them at every possible chance.
Yeah, they're their own worst enemy.
They don't. Even the announcement that they made last night about canceling the crystals and whatnot, like, it's very clear that they don't know how to handle this situation. Like they know how to make decisions in boardrooms, but they don't know how to deal with the fallout whenever they realize, like, when they're faced with gamers actually going out and saying, "Screw you, we're not going to pay you." Because how many cancellations were there for Battlefront 2 leading up to, like, pre-order cancellations? I would imagine the number is massive.
Yeah, I never signed up for a pre-order, but I was very close the other day until this news started trickling in. And, just to kind of shift gears for 1 second here before I lose this train of thought, when EA signed this exclusive deal to do Star Wars games with Disney, I find it hard to believe that Disney did not expect some kind of Star Wars game every single year. I mean, if you go by their movies, every year there's at least one Star Wars game or Star Wars movie. There's multiple Marvel movies. Yeah. You mentioned Pixar a couple of minutes ago. I find it hard to believe Disney didn't have expectations that Star Wars would be some kind of annual release, whether it's the Visceral game was going to be some kind of trilogy, whether Battlefront was going to be every other year, which it appears that it's going to be. They've done one game since they signed that deal. One game. Well, 2 games now with the Battlefront. But what is going on? This should not be this hard.
I don't know because it literally seems like they're just pissing away what should have been a gold mine. And I told you last night, the funny thing is, whatever the opposite of the Midas touch is, that's what EA has.
Yeah.
Because literally, with having a property like Star Wars, having this development studios that they do have, BioWare. You have BioWare under your umbrella, EA.
They're not doing anything with it.
And they have not utilized them. Instead, they decided to take a story that was done, for all intents and purposes, in Mass Effect, and make them come up with that shit show that was Andromeda.
Yeah.
Instead of taking that team that has a history with Star Wars, two of the greatest games in Star Wars gaming history.
So good.
And you don't use them. I mean, they literally, the heads at BioWare literally said in an interview with Game Informer magazine, I want to say 2-3 months ago, that they would love to actually get back in the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
And you're not using that team. That makes no sense. It's everything that's wrong with EA. They have no clue what they're doing. They're looking at a bunch of spreadsheets with numbers on them to determine exactly how it is that they go about it. Just given the visceral situation in that game and the way it unfolded, they're not even paying attention to what their gaming studios are doing. They didn't know what they were getting with that Star Wars game, and when they found out, then they just scrapped the whole thing.
Yeah, and a big part of that scrap, if you read the internet, and I get that you can't trust everything that's out there, was the fact that there was not a pay-to-play element in that visceral game, and EA said, nope, gotta be pay-to-play, we gotta copy Overwatch, we gotta copy Destiny. It's fine that those games exist, and I'm glad that people enjoy them, but does every single game have to have this kind of loot crate crap? I'm not going to participate in it. I mean, if I shell out $60 on a day one, $80 if you get the deluxe edition, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader have to be there right away. I should not have to grind for 40 hours to unlock those characters. It's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's completely ridiculous because you've changed the dynamic of what people actually expect. And I did see one Twitter user. It was just a random Twitter user that I don't follow, but his suggestion was to go out and buy Star Wars Battlefront 2. But for the Xbox, for the original Xbox, because like my son still plays that, he loves it, and honestly, it was a great game for the time. And given the situation where they take it from literally basically what ends up a free-to-play game to making it a pay-to-play game, it's ridiculous. And their justification for it in the Reddit thread was, well, we have matchmaking.
Ugh.
And you're like, so, okay, you have matchmaking. That's fine and wonderful. So basically what they're saying is that their understanding of what gamers want is that they just don't want to face people who are maxed out. And if they don't have to face Darth Vader, then they don't want to play as Darth Vader. That's a fundamental lack of understanding of human psychology, let alone gaming psychology.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. And you're literally, like you said, taking the main faces of the franchise that actually sell the game and not making them available to people. It's a cock tease of maximum proportion.
Well, especially when you base all your trailers leading up to this game with those heroes. You know, we saw Darth Maul fighting Yoda. We see Kylo Ren dueling with Luke Skywalker in these trailers. You know, if you want to spend 80 hours to unlock those characters, yeah, you can probably recreate that, but, you know, who has that kind of time? I don't.
Yeah. So why not just make all the weapons that you have to buy them too? That's what I told Josh the other day. I mean, you might as well.
Yeah, where do you draw the line at? You know?
Here's Darth Maul, but you don't get his double-bladed lightsaber. You just start out with a rock.
Yeah, a stick, you know, for a training lightsaber, you know, wood stick. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and clearly they simply don't understand, and they're so out of touch. And they talk about wanting to have a dialogue, but there was no dialogue until Disney stepped in.
Yeah.
It was literally, okay, we'll listen to you, but we're going to tell you what's going to happen. And that's what the entire Reddit thread came across as. Like, it wasn't an ask me anything. It was an ask me anything and then eat my answer because, well, we just don't give a shit about what you think.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. You're just supposed to gobble up whatever PR vomit that they serve you on a paper plate because they know, once again, we're the only game in town when it comes to Star Wars, so you are going to eat this and you're going to enjoy it because where are you going to go? You're going to go back and play Super Star Wars, a 25-year-old game? No, we know you want the good graphics, the good sound, and we know you want to see Kylo Ren and Finn and all these characters, so here you go. Here's this shitty game.
Yeah, and I think there's part of it that a lot of our criticism, yours and mine, are based on the fact that we are such big Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Because really we are.
I was so excited. I mean, we should be celebrating today. This should be our Brian, this should be our most positive podcast ever. I mean, we should be absolutely gushing over this game right now.
And that's just it. If it wasn't for all these side distractions, that's exactly what we would be doing. Because I'm telling you, Ryan, the game looks amazing.
Yeah, screenshots are great.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even just the screenshots. It's the gameplay itself. It's tight.
Yeah.
We would have that small complaint of the campaign being so short. And again, It's my understanding that the campaign is short. It doesn't have a complete ending that would be satisfactory to most people.
Yeah, and apparently they're justifying that by saying that if they put the ending that they have pictured for the game, if they release that right now, it would spoil Last Jedi. I don't know if that's bullshit or not, but who knows?
Yeah, and that's just it. It's like the one thing that people really, really wanted that was missing in the first game. With everything that they did, they give you a 4-hour campaign.
Ugh.
Which, what would the minimum be for you to be happy with a campaign?
6. You have to have 6. You know, we got that a couple of weeks ago when it was leaked that campaign is really short. You know, it's going to be 5, 6, maybe 7 if you take your time. When I read that, Brian, I was like, okay, let's say it comes in at the top of that, and it's 6 hours. I'm not happy with that because I'm not going to play a ton of multiplayer for a $60 game. That means I'm paying $10 an hour for this story. That's not great return on your investment when you're talking video games. Mm-hmm. But I can live with that. I mean, it's still enough if the story is good, if it ties in, it's canon, so it's important to the overall story of the Skywalkers and all that. 6 hours, I can live with that. 4 hours, that's unacceptable. That's like a long Candy Crush session. You got to give me more than that.
Yeah. And that's where I kind of wondered what the relationship between EA and DICE is, because in this situation they're sort of hand in hand and forced that way, and you gotta wonder if DICE wanted to do more, if they wanted to do less. I don't know who is really pulling the strings there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you because I think that the campaign should be longer because I do want to have a good story to bite into, because what is Star Wars if not a story?
Yeah. Well, and you brought up a good point the other day to me, Brian, something that I didn't even think about. How much of that 4-hour campaign is cutscenes that you're not even participating in?
Yeah. Yeah, are we going to have like a Telltale situation? We randomly just, okay, well, here's a quick time event or a quick fire event in that instance?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a 4-hour cutscene fest with tutorial kind of slid in?
Yeah.
And I just don't know. Like, I haven't actually gotten into the campaign yet. Mainly I've just watched a little bit that my son can play because of this freaking ridiculous remodel that's almost finished. But yeah, I mean, like everything that's doing is just weird, and you don't know anything because with the fluidity of everything that's gone on in the past, just say 48 hours, there's a lot of uncertainty now surrounding the game, and it's such a distraction that I think they're going to see a slow trickle of purchases as opposed to what they should have gotten, which is 4.5 million copies being sold on the first day. They're going to instead see that cut by 75%, ironically.
Yeah, well, and you got to remember, too, that EA is the type of company that is going to worry about the board members being happy more than the gamers, and if these first-day sales are as bad as I'm thinking they possibly might be, that could be tough for EA to explain. I mean, worst-case scenario, does this end the Battlefront franchise? You know, is this the end of it? Is it all sales? First-day sales weren't great. First-quarter sales were less than Battlefront 1. We're just going to cut ties with this and do something else. You know, yeah. It's that's the kind of company EA is. You know, they're going to worry about making sure the people making money are happy more than the gamers. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And EA would also be the type of company that would deflect all that onto gamers and DICE.
Yeah, DICE will be their head is going to roll for this.
Yeah, and it's sad. I don't like it. Everything that's going on is weird. Like I don't even know what to say about it. Like what else to add? Because the thing is, like if you look at EA and the history of EA, like. It kind of sucks that where we're at, because I think that EA has done a lot that's great for the video game industry.
Yeah, without question.
But they've lost their way.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because I don't have access to the inner workings of the company as one Twitter user actually claimed to have.
That was a pretty funny transaction.
Yeah.
You can't trust what people say on the internet, kids. You gotta take everything with a grain of salt.
Exactly. If you're not familiar with the story, a Twitter user came out and said that he worked for EA and was receiving multiple death threats as a result of Star Wars Battlefront. Shire, I think that's how you pronounce his name, of Kotaku, actually did a little digging in and discovered that this guy doesn't actually work for EA.
Uh-oh. That's gotta be a first. Somebody made something up.
Exactly, and like all of the video game journalist sites like were jumping on this story, and it turns out it wasn't even true.
Yeah, and overall in the video game industry, it has not been a very positive week for news, has it?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, whenever I saw it, I was like, what the hell? Because I'm just a little dude. I don't have time to look into these things, but
yeah,
if you're a journalist of any type, it's kind of your job to look into those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because the thing is, you look at the entire history of EA's catalog, whether it's a Mutant League Football or whether it's the Godfather series or Madden itself.
Yeah.
You look at the early days of Madden, where would we be in the football gaming thing if not for EA? I mean, even things like 2K Sports, when they had their series before the exclusivity deals, so much is owed to EA for their history. But now it's like they're willfully throwing it away for what is essentially soulless money.
Well, and you just mentioned 2K, Brian, and I really do think that kind of transitions into what I consider to be EA's biggest problem is that they don't have any competition on stuff like Madden and Star Wars, and they're just, since they have the full controlling interest of this stuff, these exclusive deals that run for decades at a time, there's no reason to go above and beyond because they don't have to worry about 2K making something. They don't have to worry about Activision's Star Wars game. They can just kind of every year, they can do the annual roster update on Madden, make more realistic grass, change the soundtrack, and here you go, give us your $60 or $80 if you want the Tom Brady special edition. And they get away with it every single time because there is no other game in town.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And that's why Battlefront 2 is what it is. There's no competition. There's nothing to worry about for them. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and they literally had an opportunity to just make one of the greatest games ever because of the technology that's involved, because of the exclusivity, because of the fact that it is simply it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And the technology that has evolved since the last Star Wars games is just incredible.
Sure.
And this is what they give us because, like you said, there's no competition. And just say that LucasArts was still around. Anything that they could have put out wouldn't have... And I think that it would have stood up to it. And it's like, it's bizarre to me that they didn't kind of incorporate something like that into it.
Yeah.
Because you can put skins on things, but if it doesn't have the feel and I keep saying it, the soul of Star Wars, then you're missing out on one of the best aspects of the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, EA didn't even have, or Dyson rather, didn't even have competition in-house anymore, with Visceral dissolving, and, obviously, I can't remember the studio that Star Wars game got transferred up to, but that's years away. I mean, this is the only game in town right now is Battlefront 2. So, I mean, there's not even that driving it. It's so poorly handled.
Yeah, it is bad, and everything that's going on is just... It's really weird, and I don't like it at all. I don't think many people do like it. If you actually look up and down the whole spectrum of the gaming reaction to this event, which should, as you said, be a celebration of a great Star Wars game, just overshadowed by all of this.
Well, I mean, our friends Casey and March, you've heard them on the show before. They're as big as Star Wars fans as you and I, and they canceled their pre-orders as well. I mean, it just was so negative, the buzz about this game, that people like me and them, it's just kind of like, I can't do it. I can't shell out $60 and then be expected to pay more on top of that if I want to compete. Dude, I already get my ass kicked in multiplayer. If I don't shell out money for these damn loot boxes, it's going to be even worse for me. I mean, and what fun is that to get in there and get shot in the face 5 seconds in by Lando Calrissian because somebody had the money to go and buy it?
Yeah, that's a huge mistake, and whether or not they're able to recover remains to be seen. Because the thing is, you can't have a game of this size being just surrounded in this much controversy, lose as many pre-sales as they no doubt have, and really recover from it.
Yeah.
No matter how good the game is, the damage is done. And they're too arrogant to see it, which is the problem.
It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this in the next 6 months, because if you remember, the Battlefield 1 game came out, and then a couple months later, once VR got some steam, well, it was over a year later, VR got some steam, they did that one-off VR mission. It was an X-Wing mission for Battlefront 1, rather, and that was awesome. And that was like a shot of B vitamin for me in the arm. I was like, okay, this is it. They're going to use this positive momentum. They listen to the gamers. They know that we're upset, that we're disappointed in the story in Battlefield 1. They're going to fix it for Battlefield 2. I was pumped for this game, man. I mean, the campaign coming. They gave us the VR mission for free. I thought maybe DICE had figured things out, or not DICE, but EA rather, and they effed it up.
Yeah. It will be, because you don't know if it's going to be a slow burn, and I think that the key for them, how they perceived in this whole instance, is already kind of, I don't want to say that it's set in stone, but it's certainly, the notches are there.
Yeah.
But with Disney stepping in, that's the thing that's going to interest me, because clearly Disney, who is a major, major partner in that company, and so much of what EA does right now is dependent on that deal with Disney. Less so than is the case with the NFL, given the declining ratings and stuff like that for the NFL.
Yeah.
But Disney, rather, the whole Disney-EA relationship, if they're seeing that getting damaged, I honestly believe that Disney could be the saving grace for the gamers who actually do want the Star Wars games. Because Disney, for all of its own craziness that it does, they love their intellectual properties that they own, that they have the rights to. And a thing like Disney, and a thing like Star Wars rather, and Marvel, they are going to be very protective of those. And their reason, I used to work for Disney, disclosure. I used to work for the Disney store, more specifically. And the one thing that they preach is the Disney culture. And the Disney culture is, yes, heavily involved in making money.
Yeah.
But the way that they do that is by fostering a relationship with the people that they're making money off of. The single most important thing that they would tell you in Disney training: always smile. Always be smiling. Always make the customer, when they come in, feel like they are your guest. Make them feel like you are taking care of them. Above all other things, it's not about the money. It's about making sure that that person feels like they had a magical experience, quote unquote. So Disney, they get it. They get what it takes to build and maintain a relationship, because Disney World opened in 1960 something, or in the 1950s, and it's still the most magical place on earth.
Yeah.
Because they get it.
Yeah.
They understand how important those relationships are. EA doesn't quite get that, because what they've gone from a fun publisher putting out fun games that people like, that people will still want to pick up and play Mutant League Football, that there are still Kickstarter campaigns to try to get that game back.
People loved it.
Yeah, the Road Rashes, which apparently there's going to be a Road Rash game ideally in the future. They took that and they made it into these, just a culture of publish stuff, make it a AAA title, sell, and have lost the identity that they actually created back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That identity is so far gone at this point that it's virtually indistinct. Like, they're not the same company. They're simply not. And that's been their mistake.
Yeah, and the deal is, like, with brand identification, like Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, that type of stuff, is now that we're firmly into the social media age, it's very hard for people, the consumers, the people that are buying your product, to disassociate the movies from the video games, from the comics, from the novel, because you either consume that type of media, the side media, or you see people talking about it. So when you have a video game that is being as poorly received as this one is, it makes the movies look bad. It makes the entire brand looks bad. I mean, we're not talking, this doesn't ruin The Last Jedi for anybody. It doesn't ruin The Empire Strikes Back for anybody. But it does, it's a blemish on the franchise. And people that are never going to play this video game are taking notice of this because they see it on Twitter. They see it in their Facebook newsfeed. It's a black eye.
Yeah. It's a massive black eye. And it's something that they're going to have to deal with and put their egos to the side if they're going to actually recover from it.
Yeah.
And the question is, are they capable of it? Because I'm not 100% confident that they are.
It's got to be something big. I mean, there needs to be like a 2-hour DLC campaign or something like that. I mean, which would get it up to 6 hours. So I guess that's something. But they need to fix this, and it's got to be some kind of dramatic. You can't put a Band-Aid on a broken leg here. It's got to be something dramatic.
Yeah. Yep. And unfortunately, Battlefront 2 is taking all the attention, but there have been a lot of other things going on over the past week. And what we've started here at the One Up Club is actually a new hashtag campaign where you, the listener, can actually contribute to the show. Just by adding your thoughts and stuff like that. I covered a little bit on the mini episode that we did. I changed the format because as I listened to it, I was like, you know what? It doesn't make sense to make up, up, down, down, which is what the segment will be called. It doesn't make sense to put a requirement of giving me 2 ups and 2 downs for the week. So basically what I did is I made the hashtag #OneUpDown be something that you can actually contribute to the show by just giving us your thoughts. If it's something that's positive, something that's negative, whether you want to make us laugh or just want to vent, by all means, use Twitter, the hashtag #OneUpDown. You got 280 characters now, so you can just let it fly. So, Ryan, I'm going to go in through here because we got a lot of responses. Well, not a lot, but, I mean, it's new, so I consider it a lot.
Yeah.
Given the couple of days that we've had and not really being able to spread the word. A lot of them are actually Battlefront 2.
Not surprising. That's the buzz right now.
Yeah, so we're going to start with Mart at Only One Mart. He says, hashtag #OneUpDown, dislikes fucking-A, trying to implement a pay-to-play model. He put F2P, but I think he meant pay-to-play.
Yeah.
On a full-price game. EA, again, just for being the huge, lubeless assholes that they are. And the thing is, I think that that's the perception of a lot of people right now. They've done a lot of damage to the community.
Yeah, Mart is certainly speaking for the masses there.
Yeah, he literally is.
He's speaking for me, that's how I feel.
Yeah. And then Mart he actually added the 2 goods. He followed the 2 ups and 2 downs kind of thing. So his 2 likes were his Transformers Earth Wars Phoenix R3 Alliance finished the weekend's LB event in the top 200 in the world for the first time. Congrats on that. I don't know how many people play that. I've not actually taken the opportunity to. Have you played Transformers Earth Wars?
I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, neither have I.
Is that console?
I'm not sure. So we're going to have to ask him.
I love Transformers.
Yeah. And then he also added that he's on the verge of winning the Triple Crown on Project Cars 2.
Oh.
It's the only Le Mans race that he has to go.
Nice. Congrats, Martin.
Yeah, Le Mans is it. And once he finishes that, then he's got the Triple Crown. Must be nice to have time to game, Mart.
Yeah, Mart's had a good week in gaming, it sounds like.
Yeah, you can spend all that time trying to unlock Darth Vader.
Yeah, 40 hours is all it's going to take, Mart. Get after that. Get that game.
Yeah. And Tom Hibbard, who is actually Mart's brother, at Tibberdy 95, that's Tibberdy 95, he says the good is a new League of Legends preseason coming out. And Fortnite Battle Royale. Have you played Fortnite yet?
No.
No? Fortnite is fun. The Battle Royale is really interesting. It's available to people for free.
Like that price?
Yeah.
Is there loot boxes? Is there loot boxes in there?
Yeah, it's what is it? I think it's the Epic Games makes it. Now, what it is it's essentially it's basically a free demo of the game that they're currently working on for release. If you pre-order the game, then you can unlock other modes. But the Battle Royale is totally free for everybody. And basically you get drop zoned onto an island, and it's the last person standing. And the whole time, like, a storm is closing in on you, so it forces everybody into a smaller area over time, so that it's not taking days to finish a round.
Yeah.
I saw Tucker actually described it. I think it was Tucker that described it like Hunger Games.
Oh.
You drop into the zone with nothing, and you have to find weapons laying around and in little outbuildings and stuff like that. And it's really fun. It's really fun. You can have up to like 100 players on the map. Check it out because it is free and and it's well worth the download time and stuff like that.
Now, are these bots or are you play? Is this multiplayer?
Oh, it's online multiplayer.
Okay, yeah, I do like the sound of this. Now I remember you telling me about this game. This does sound like a very interesting concept.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because it's like you find different weapon classes and stuff like that. You can find sniper rifles. They had a Halloween event. You can have like a pumpkin launcher, which is like a rocket launcher kind of thing. Cause massive damage. It's just a lot of fun. And if you get caught in a storm, you don't necessarily die immediately, but you better get out of it because you'll get struck by lightning and dead.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, worth it. It's totally worth it. You can be like one of 4 characters that they randomly assign you. So much fun. So I'm with you on that one, Tom. And the bad, he just said, mark down EA for twice. Which is exactly what the situation is. EA's earned it this week.
Yep, they're getting what they deserve.
Yeah, and then I added a couple in here, just random thoughts as I did it, because I like one-liners kind of thing. But I tweeted hashtag #OneUpDown. A down for me is that if Bubble Bobble were released today, the classic Nintendo game, video game journalists would try to fit it into some geo-social political context. I'm so sick of and tired of everything being a political issue.
Yep, there's no escaping it.
Any game that comes out, any freaking video game streamer that makes a comment, we gotta break it down into some massive issue as to whether or not it's racist, sexist, if it's unfair to the economic masses. I'm just tired of it. You know what I want to hear? I want to hear that The Witcher 3 was a great game, end of story, period.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear, but they were nude characters and Geralt wasn't naked nearly as much as Yennefer or whoever the hell else is in that game. I'm not interested. Like, I don't care about the patriarchy if I'm going to sit there and play freaking Saints Row.
Yeah, there's just no escaping it because there are many, many people that have made careers out of being outraged about this stuff, so that's what they do. Anytime new media is released, they break it down and, oh, this is that, and here's why you're supposed to be mad about it. Give me money on my Patreon, please.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't make me insensitive to the situations that exist out in the world.
No.
But they want to make it seem that way. No, what it makes me want to be entertained and actually escape that world that I'm surrounded by on a daily freaking basis for hours upon hours upon hours.
Yeah.
And that's what people are losing. You have to break away from the realities of the world to save your own sanity.
Yep.
Because if you completely allow yourself to be absorbed in the political situations of the day, you're literally going to go insane.
Yeah.
People wonder why anxiety is so prevalent today. That's why.
You've got to vent the pressure that builds up inside you, you know, and if you sit on Twitter all day and look at this and follow people that are going to upset you, your head is just going to explode one day. You know, you got to do yourself a favor. You know, I'm not a psychologist, but take some advice from me. Just log off. Take a deep breath and do something that you enjoy, like play a good video game, not Battlefront 2.
Yeah, and there's so much to be said for that, and
yeah.
people just don't seem to get it. My next one was hashtag one up down up. Nintendo is looking to try an animated full-length Super Mario Brothers feature through DreamWorks. That's actually a pretty big deal. I think that's cool. My downside to that is I'd much rather see them give a live-action Link or Zelda story a shot. Are you up for a Super Mario Brothers movie?
Well,
something that you'd be interested in?
Is this going to break the canon of the Bob Hoskins one from the 90s? Because you know that's a pretty good movie. You know, if this is some kind of reboot, I'm not on board with that. I mean, yeah, it could be cool. I enjoyed the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, you know, as a kid. I think we have some of those on DVD someplace, and that was fun. But I like your idea better. I mean, I would like to see like a dark, brooding kind of Legend of Zelda thing, kind of in the veins of those Marvel Netflix. I mean, that would never happen, of course. But something like that, I think, would be badass. The other day, you told me like a cross between Assassin's Creed and what was the other one you used?
It was Assassin's Creed and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. That's a good mix right there. I would definitely be on board with that. That interests me a lot more than cartoon Mario. We've seen that already.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if Nintendo, in doing so, because I don't think it's a bad move. And believe me, I'm not crapping all over the fact that they're going Super Mario Brothers because I think that it's a smart move.
That's their flagship franchise.
Yeah, it's a safe move.
Yeah,
and that's perfectly fine by me because Nintendo doesn't have the greatest history when it comes to cross-platform or cross-media.
Not so much.
I mean, it's just it hasn't worked out for them that much. And for them to the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, now I'm thinking about it, so corny. Like the whole live action segments were just weird.
Yeah.
But Zelda and things like that just kind of fits what people are watching today a little bit more than Super Mario Brothers. And who knows? Maybe we will see something like that. There was a rumor at one point that they were going to be bringing something like that to a Netflix or a streaming service. But yeah, right now, I would much rather see that. But at the same time, I mean, if you've got DreamWorks coming in there and they're going to be doing a Super Mario Brothers movie in the vein of Despicable Me or Kung Fu Panda,
yeah,
I think that could be really, really fun.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed moneymaker. I mean, people love Mario and Luigi, so they're going to go see it.
Oh, definitely. They'll make their money on it, no doubt.
Yeah.
My next article, my next item on my list was hashtag one up down. Cuphead developer studio MDHR has decided and made the announcement that they're going to be sticking with 2D animation styles. And honestly, that is freaking
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's a lost art. I love the way that game looks.
Oh my god, that game. My biggest problem with Cuphead is that it's not on the PlayStation.
Yeah, it's a very sad story.
I want to play that
Yeah,
so bad.
it's so cool looking.
But what it shows that Studio MDHR actually understands what they're good at. They understand their strength. They understand that they found something with Cuphead that works, and they're going to stick with it and run it out. Far too often we see these gaming companies come out with something that really works, and then they try to reinvent themselves before whatever it is stops working. And that is such a huge mistake. Find the thing that works. Run with it.
Yeah.
Just run with it.
And try something different. I mean, everything is the cell shade, or not the cell shade, but, the 3D design I'm talking about. It all looks exactly the same, whether you go and see a Pixar movie, whether you play a video game like that. I love seeing stuff that's different, and I would like. Why can't there ever be like feature-length films in that art style? I mean, that art style is cool.
Yeah. And one of the studio heads, actually, in an interview that I read, he said, when you think about it, we found a way to animate cartoons and let you control the cartoon.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And he's like, that's just fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love seeing somebody being able to look back and put it into a context that makes sense. Because I think that most artistic people have always imagined doing something like that, like making a cartoon. I would love to have the time and the resources to sit down and make a cartoon, just even like little 3-minute shorts. It would be so much fun, and they found a way to actually create this entire world. That is just amazing. It's simply amazing.
Very difficult game, from what I understand.
Yeah. And they're actually coming out with Funko Pops. That was my addendum
to
that comment.
Not surprises. Funko seems to be everything now.
Yep. I love those things. Then I posed a question using hashtag #OneUpDown. It's, Ryan, if you were Clyde from Pac-Man, would you be kind of pissed that you didn't get an Inky name, too?
Yeah, he's the only one, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or maybe, that
Pinky, and Clyde.
But that makes him stand out, so maybe, he feels special.
Yeah. Eric Durendo, Durendo, 13 on Twitter. He actually said, hell no! Clyde celebrates his rebellious uniqueness as I would. And I read once that people thought Clyde was dumb, but I think he's just introspective. Who knows?
Eric has the most creative takes. I love it.
Yeah. And I only had one other one-up-down item for the week, and that is the trivia question of the week. Ryan, did you have any ups and downs that you saw from video games that you'd like to share with us?
I'll give you an up. I was inspired to go back and play the classic PC game TIE Fighter this week because of all the Battlefront disappointment. That game's a lot of fun, man. It's unbelievably hard, but as all games in that era were, I think it was 94 is when it came out. But it's also very satisfying, and it takes a lot of strategy. Like you have to listen to your instructions, and you have to play the game a certain way, or you're going to get killed 5 seconds into the mission. If you have $10 to spare, go and get that game. It's available on goodoldgames.com. X-Wing is there too. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. They have them all for sale there. Play on PC or Mac. I highly recommend it. All you need is a gamepad, and you can play that. If you're looking for an alternative to Battlefront 2, go check out TIE Fighter and X-Wing. Those games are just amazing.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that's been lost. I think gaming is a massive reflection on society itself.
Yeah.
And we in this current state of things are so focused on the immediate gratification. And that's why shooters are so popular, because they drop you in and 10 minutes later you have a result.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just going to start over again. Whereas I put my son on Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm like, check this out. And Horizon Zero Dawn is arguably one of the best games that I've ever played.
Yeah, it's amazing.
but he didn't necessarily like it because you had to spend time with it, and it took you time to get out of it what it was giving to you. Whereas a Garden Warfare or Overwatch or Star Wars Battlefront 2, you're getting a direct result within minutes of starting. Um, so yeah, you go back and play that game. I mean, control-wise, was it something that you had to relearn, like how to actually play the game?
Oh yeah, I mean it's super complicated too because of course it's a PC game, so you have the keyboard in there and stuff, which is why it could never ever be truly remastered for a console because there's so many things you have to worry about. You know, you've got to adjust your laser settings, you've got to adjust your speed, you've got to adjust all this stuff. You use pretty much every button on the keyboard, and that takes a long time to figure out when you've played consoles for a couple of decades.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. That aspect alone. But then I find, because I do play a lot of retro games, having to rewire your brain to go from just the analog controller to a D-pad is insane. Like, I still play fighting games with the D-pad because I much prefer using a D-pad than a joystick. I'm probably one of the few people that are actually like that. But when you go back and you play like a game like, say, Super Off-Road, and going from that joystick analog type controller to a D-pad is just so much different.
Yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah, because it's on off, and you go back to those early to mid 90 games, even late 90 games, and just the structure, like the way that they're put together, like all of those little elements. We've just changed gaming so much that it's kind of you have to literally rewire your brain to handle it. And sometimes it makes it more enjoyable, and sometimes it makes it less so. Like, I honestly feel like Resident Evil, I got the remaster on the PlayStation 4, and I would so much rather go back and play the original one, which I also have.
Yeah.
Just because of the feel is just so much different. And it's like it loses something, but I love retro gaming. And if you guys listening, if you actually have any favorite retro gaming games or anything like that you'd love to talk about, by all means tell me about it because I love talking retro games too. But that's going to actually be it then. Did you have any downs?
Well, I'm not going to punch or kick you in the shins any more than I already have in this podcast. You and the listeners know how I feel about that, so clearly that would be my choice. But let's just kind of let that lie, I guess.
All right. Excellent, excellent. So join the conversation. Just use the hashtag #OneUpDown, and each and every week I'll actually go ahead and read all of those on the air. Give you a nice little shout out, and who knows, maybe we can give each other a bump. But the One-Up-Down trivia question of the week, I actually went back to those retro games. There's Street Fighter V. Have you played that at all?
I was always a Mortal Kombat guy.
Yeah, so am I. I literally played Street Fighter V. I picked it up because I figured it was a little more friendly for my son.
Yeah.
And so really it's only with him that I play it. But you could argue that one of the biggest impacts in gaming, at least the fighting genre, came from Street Fighter 2. It really changed everything about that game. There's so many different trivia questions that you could ask from that. And I'm going to actually throw a trivia question each week out there leading up to the show. And this week's was without looking it up, because where would the fun be if you just do the research? How many playable characters are available in the original Street Fighter 2 game? Because there were only like 158 different variations of Street Fighter 2. So I just went with the original Street Fighter 2 game. And the correct answer, and which to this point 69% of respondents have gotten correct, was 8. There were 8 characters in the original Street Fighter 2 game that were playable. Yeah, those characters, Akuma, Ryo, Chun-Li, M. Bison, or no. that's a different list. Never mind. I don't know what they were because, like you said, I was a Mortal Kombat guy. I didn't play much Street Fighter.
I bet Blanca was on there. You remember Blanca?
Yeah, Blanca.
That was the only guy I really liked in that because he was that big, like he was kind of like the Hulk with a mullet.
Yeah, and when we were down in Birmingham, they had the arcade and the arcade machine of Street Fighter 2 actually in the one bar that we went to.
Yeah.
And so I actually played with my son on the arcade cabinet,
Nice.
which was a blast.
Yeah.
And he chose Blanca, and he literally beat the hell out of me.
Blanca was a badass. Yeah.
Yeah. My son is not a fighting game person. Like, he played a little bit of Injustice, Gods Among Us, and he played the little bit of Street Fighter 5 that we play here. But at that point, we didn't have Street Fighter 5. So his interactions in fighting games was literally limited to Injustice. And he kicked my butt so bad in that game. It was hilarious. But he had a blast doing it. But be sure to look at it. If you got it right, congratulations. Maybe we'll find a way to incorporate that into a contest at some point in the future. But look for that each and every week. On Thursdays, I'm going to come up with a trivia question leading into a Friday show. So, at this point, anything else for the listeners? Because we're going to wrap this up today, Ryan. Do you have anything? Tell them how to contact you, all that other fun stuff.
I got nothing else, but the Twitter is at Ryhamner. If you feel like talking video games, if you want to bitch and moan about Battlefront 2, I am always up for that. If you want some TIE Fighter tips, hit me up on there. Game Block is the website. Do not forget the dash between game and block. And that's how you get hold of me.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find me on Twitter at TunesBrian. That's TOONSBRIAN. Don't forget to, throughout the week, anytime you see news, just hashtag #OneUpDownIt. That way I can spot it at the end of the week, see what it is that you're interested in. Make us laugh, because that's always fun. Be sure to check out the shop, again, at oneup.club. That's one-up.club. Send us an email, the oneupclub@gmail.com. Or actually follow us on Twitter for the show, which is at Club One Up. For now, that's going to be it. My name is Brian. He's Ryan. Thank you very much for listening, and welcome to the weekend.